Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Teacher Tip Tuesday. I'm Clara Galan, Content Marketing Manager and former teacher here at Remind, and I'm looking forward to our 8th Teacher Tip Tuesday. So for those of you who are just tuning in, Teacher Tip Tuesday is a 5-minute professional development series in which we interview educators from around the world about innovative classroom practices and communication strategies, and share their ideas with the Global Professional Learning Network. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Alice Keeler, who's an adjunct professor of education at California State University Fresno, a phenomenal education blogger, and advocate for gamification and innovation in the classroom. So hi, Alice. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your classroom and your classes. How long have you been teaching at CSU Fresno?
I've been teaching here for about 5 years. I was teaching high school math prior to this, so now I teach teachers how to integrate technology into the classroom.
That's great. So, you know, what's one innovative practice or strategy that you've been sharing with your students to try out in their own classrooms?
So, I mean, we do a lot of different things, and some of the things we do is gamification, but what I've been really excited about using this semester in particular is Google Classroom, so I just wanted to share a little bit about that because I have my students writing lesson plans, and this is their first lesson plan that they've ever written, and what I do is I push out a template to them via Google Classroom, and then that gives me access to their document right away. So I've been going in and giving feedback to them from almost as soon as we have assigned the assignment. But my workflows are just so fast. I actually did a blog post on this recently of when you start using some keyboard shortcuts in conjunction with Google Classroom, your ability to give students feedback is so quick. You almost you're excited. You want to give students feedback in your spare time, like we have any. But it's so motivating for students to have them get that feedback before they've even really gotten very far into the activity, so that they know that they're on the right track and they feel confident. So I click, I've got the whole list of student documents that they have not turned in yet, and so I click, I use the keyboard shortcuts to insert a comment, I use the keyboard shortcut to close the comment, and I use keyboard shortcut Control-W to close the student's document, and I move right on to the next one. So I think what's really innovative and what technology allows us to do is to get students' feedback faster and give it to them before it takes me away from being the evaluator to being able to coach and come alongside students, and that is a huge innovation in teaching.
That's amazing, and I think that's so important. You bring up a good point that giving students feedback before the end of the assignment and before it's due, so it's really formative and you're helping them with their learning process.
Exactly. So in previous semesters, I mean, even though I was using Google Drive and Google Docs, it's still just so hard to get them to share it with you and to go in and check it. So just Google Classroom has just made it so much more motivating for me to be able, and easier to be able to do that. So that's my tip.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm sure a lot of teachers will be able to use that in their own classrooms. So I know that you have many methods of staying connected to your students with the help of tech. What's one way that you've used Remind, and how has it impacted your experience in your classroom?
Well, I've used Remind, and I like to do it to send out reminders, obviously, for upcoming events and reminding them whether or not we have class that week, because I do a blended learning environment, so sometimes they get together in groups and do what we call virtual class. But I saw somebody tweeting today about Remind that I thought was a really great use of using Remind with Google Classroom. So one of the things about Google Classroom is that it's a closed environment, which I think is really great to protect student privacy. But the problem is that when you post announcements in Google Classroom, parents can't see it. So if you pull up Remind side by side with your Google Classroom, so you have the two windows, right? This is like my new thing this week that I'm sharing with people. Not so much that it's new, but right, so you have Remind side by side with Google Classroom, and you can just copy and paste your announcements into Remind, and you're able to send out those announcements to parents so that they're aware of the announcement along with the student. So that I thought was just a really clever way to, I don't want to say circumvent Google Classroom because I really actually like that feature, but to get parents involved in what Google Classroom has got going on.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I know I've seen so many teachers that they'll post something, an announcement on their website, or or like you said, in Google Classroom, but sometimes that push notification is a lot quicker to have, students access it on their mobile device, and parents, like you mentioned too, so if parents are not in Google Classroom, they can just get that push notification or SMS text message letting them know what that reminder is.
Yeah, totally. I think you know this about me. I have 5 kids, so going to each of my kids' teacher's classroom websites and seeing what they're doing that day, like, I don't have time to do it for every single one. So getting those notifications pushed out to me is such a big deal.
Yeah, like you said, I think that's great to hear. That is really helpful for parents as well as educators.
Sure.
So one last thing, Alice, I know that you're the founder of Coffee EDU, which is a helpful and manageable way for teachers, to stay connected and share PD tips on a regular basis. Can you share with our viewers, what is Coffee EDU and what are some ways they could get involved?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. Coffee EDU is a 1-hour, unconference-style, casual get-together of educators that's participant-driven. So you don't pick the topic in advance. You just pick a time, date, and location, so it's easy to do, and invite any educator to show up and whatever topics they want to talk about, and it's really strict to 1 hour. It's really hard to get teachers to leave their classroom, so this is a really great opportunity for them to know it's going to be 1 hour exactly. They're going to get some really good, encouraging tips, and then they get to leave, and you're at a coffee shop having coffee, so hard to complain. So you can go to coffeeedu.org for more information, and anyone can host a Coffee EDU. And thank you for hosting some of them, Claire. That's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Alice. What I love about Coffee EDU is that we may have our ed camps that are once a quarter or even once a year, and then we don't have those other opportunities to share different tips and strategies with teachers that are in our local network. So that's one thing that we've been doing as we've been traveling, all over to these different conferences, is hosting Coffee EDUs in the morning before the conference, as I know you've done at ISTE.
Yeah, I'm planning to do it every morning at ISTE this year.
I'm excited. Yeah, it worked so well, at TCEA and NASSP. So it's definitely something that I definitely recommend for those who are looking for more opportunities to connect.
Thank you.
So it looks like we're running out of time, but thank you, Alice, so much for joining us this evening. For those who are tuning in, how can viewers get in touch with you via Twitter?
Yeah, I'm at Alice Keeler on Twitter, and I'm pretty quick to respond, so I would love to hear from people.
Great. So thanks again to all of you for tuning in tonight, and thank you again to Alice. If you have any questions about this interview, you can tweet at us. We're at RemindHQ on Twitter or on Facebook, facebook.com/RemindHQ, and be sure to include the hashtag TeachTues, so that's TeachTues. If you'd like to be interviewed or have your class or school featured, be sure to get in touch. I'm Clara Galan, and on Twitter at Miss Clara Galan. And be sure to tune in next week for some more great teacher tips. We'll be having a teacher from Classroom Champions joining us and sharing some of her strategies. All right, thank you. Good night.
Bye.